slow.
Welcome to episode 72 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. This episode is very, very juicy because there have been so many rumors floating around about Patrick Kane. Where is he going to land? He's in the final year of his big contract with the Chicago Blackhawks. They're entering a rebuild. Rumors have been swirling. Is he going to the Leafs? Is he going to the Oilers? Is he going to the New York Rangers, the Buffalo Sabres? We are going to break that all down. But before we get into all that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Doing well, Anthony Bruno. Thank you for having me. It's a hot, muggy, humid day in the nation's capital. So, as I often say, there's no place I'd rather be than indoors recording a pod. Episode 72 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast. Shout out goes to Matthew Schneider, who wore the number 72 from 96 to 98 with the Leafs. He only played about 100 some odd games in the blue and white because of some injuries, and he was actually kind of like a trade deadline deal in 96. But some interesting tidbits about Schneider's connection to the Leafs. So number one, his trade from the Islanders to the Leafs, it was him, DJ Smith, former assistant coach of the Leafs and now coach of the Sens, and Wendell Clark came in that deal. Also, what went the other way was a first round draft pick that ended up being Roberto Luongo.
Oh, man.
Added to the list of devastating chapters in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But for right now, as I said, shout out goes to Schneider and his time with the Maple Leafs.
I almost forgot that Matthew Schneider played for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, he played for 10 teams, so.
Yeah, fair enough. He was a smooth defenseman, man.
Yeah, won a
Good
cup.
player,
yeah.
But man, not getting Roberto Luongo, that stings. I mean, who knows who the Leafs would have drafted, but that stings.
It's so funny. You look like pre-cap trades. Like the Leafs trade, like a first round pick, like Schneider, an old Clark, and like whatever DJ Smith was. Like, whoa, what was that? Like, oh, first round picks are like useless. Who cares? It's just funny to look back at that stuff.
Crazy. What could have been if Roberto Luongo was with the Leafs for a decade plus?
Yeah, an Italian goalie playing for the Maple Leafs. What could go wrong, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right, Lepore, let's get right into this.
Let's go.
Like I said, the rumors have been swirling about Patrick Kane, and the same with Jonathan Toews, because the Blackhawks have clearly entered a rebuild. They've gotten rid of everybody except those two guys, pretty much. And Seth Jones, who must be thinking, what the hell am I doing here on this team at this point? Because this team's going to be awful. So with Patrick Kane, who knows right now? Because on a recent episode of the Spittin Chiclets podcast, Paul Bissonnette,
the man,
huge Leaf fan, Paul Bissonnette, Biz Nasty, as most of you know him, came out and said that Kyle Dubas is going to do everything in his power to acquire Patrick Kane so he can team up with his fellow American Austin Matthews, and together they will win a Stanley Cup. And then on top of that, Paul Bissonnette said that Patrick Kane, after his contract expires, is going to take a discount, just like Mark Giordano has and Jason Spezza over the last couple of years. And he thinks that he's going to stay in Toronto making, who knows, making peanuts.
Sure.
So, Lepore, what are your thoughts on all these Patrick Kane rumors? Do you actually think that he could land in Toronto?
See, Bruno, I think the greater question is Nylander going to give him 88 when he does get to Toronto? But if I'm being perfectly honest, if I think Patrick Kane will wear the blue and white, I find it highly unlikely. First things first, there is something called the salary cap. So it'd be very difficult for the Leafs to bring a player like that in. There's also what Patrick Kane will cost. So there's the question of whether or not Kyle Dubas is willing to fork over the asking price. And lastly, I mean, for this to happen, Patrick Kane has to want to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I always say on this show, I try not to get inside players' heads. But if I had to lay a bet on where Patrick Kane pictures himself, I don't think it would be with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'm the biggest Leaf fan in the world, but I can say that with honesty that I recognize the issues that come with playing in Toronto. So if Patrick Kane, or if the Leafs do not make Patrick Kane's list, I would fully get it. What do you think, Bruno? Is there a chance of this actually happening?
As a Leaf fan, and I'm sure I speak for Leaf fans all around the world, we would all love Patrick Kane
Oh my God,
to
be
be a
hilarious.
Toronto Maple Leaf. That would be incredible. He is one of the best players of this generation.
Underrated.
Really, honestly, underrated in a
Yeah.
way. And I know he's won 3 Stanley Cups, and we know everything that he's accomplished, all the points that he's put up. But when you compare him to some of the other top players from this era, he actually is kind of low-key underrated in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really good point. So obviously, Leaf fans would love to have this guy. But saying that, Lepore, I happen to agree with you as well. Like, I can't see this happening. I just feel like there's too many moving parts.
Yeah.
So here's the thing with Kane, right? Like, if he's going to go to any of these contenders, none of these contenders have cap space. Like, none of the serious contenders. There's going to have to be a lot of maneuvering. Maybe there's a third team involved. Unless the Blackhawks are willing to retain like 50% of his salary, it's possible. The team that that acquires Patrick Kane is going to have, especially if the Blackhawks are going to retain, whether it's 25, 50% of his salary, you're going to have to unload prospects, draft picks. Yeah. This is a guy who just put up 92 points last season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not talking about a Patrick Kane who's, declining year after year, getting older. Like, despite him being, I believe he's like 33 now, despite him entering his mid-30s, this is still a very productive player. 92 points last season. You go over the last 5-6 years, he's like one of the top 5 point producers in the NHL. He's still very productive, and if you put him with any of these stars on the Leafs, that would be amazing. But I just think there's too much maneuvering here, especially for a team like the Leafs to acquire him. And I wouldn't want to give up one of the core 4 in return. Like, I wouldn't want to give up Nylander for Patrick Kane. I don't think that makes any sense, Lepore.
Yeah, for 1 year. But you mentioned the Blackhawks retaining. I mean, is there any way this deal happens if they don't retain half? I think they kind of have to. Like, I mean, even 25%, he's still $7.5 million for a contending team. That's a lot. Like you said, these teams don't have cap space. So I'm picturing it being a 50% retention. And also, if Chicago ownership is willing to do that, I'm sure the management wants to do that, because of that increases the return. Heck, we're holding on to half this guy's salary and we're immediately pushing you possibly over the edge. Pay me. Like, I don't want to know, man. I do not want to know what Patrick Kane would cost. You look at these guys. Let's go back to last year. What was traded for Ben Sherratt? I know that's like a hilarious example, and it's like hindsight, all that. What the Leafs traded for Nick Foligno, to rent Nick Foligno. Patrick Kane at a discount price. Almost, I don't know, like trade the Scotiabank Arena like while you're at it, creating this deal. But I don't see it happening for Toronto. Sucks, because as you said, it would be amazing. And I kind of like Biz's whole US hockey thing of him passing the torch to Matthews. That'd be a great story. But no.
Yeah, I think the only way that there isn't salary retained in this deal is if he goes to a non-contending team that has a ton of cap space.
Right.
Whether that's Buffalo, everyone jokes about like Arizona, how if guys are making so much money, just ship them off to Arizona because they have all this cap space. Like that doesn't make sense. Like, why would Patrick Kane want to go to one of these shitty teams? Maybe Buffalo sort of makes sense, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the podcast since he is from Buffalo. But if you're Patrick Kane, you've won 3 Stanley Cups, you're still a very productive player. I would assume that this guy wants to continue winning Stanley Cups and not rotting away on a terrible franchise that's either in rebuild mode or just has no hope in hell of winning a championship. Now, I don't know exactly how the guy is wired, but I can't imagine someone like him would want to be on a team that has no chance of even making the playoffs this coming season.
Yeah. God, I'm smiling for those watching. If it actually was to happen, Patrick Kane traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs, it would just be fucking hilarious, because it would be hilarious. because it'd be a total fuck you move by the Leafs to the rest of the league. And all the hate would come pouring down on the Leafs pulling off this deal. The media would explode both positively and negatively. The responses on TSN Sportsnet would be absolutely hilarious. It'd just be a riot. It'd be a total riot. And again, like as we said, if the Leafs were to get him, there would be retained salary, maybe a third team, and again, which I think would be likely. So then people would flip out at that. I've already heard a lot of people have the take that shouldn't be allowed, that you shouldn't be able to cut a player in half and then cut him in half again, like the Leafs did with Foligno, and that's a take. I mean, but the rules now. A team's gonna do that if they can to make themselves better. But all in all, it would just be, as I often say, A+ entertainment for Patrick Kane. Just that move and where he would go, all the topics. And let's talk about this, Bruno. If it was to happen, and this would be a big topic if the deal did happen, where would he play? Who would you slot him with?
So if he did come to the Leafs, if Kyle Dubas was able to pull this off, I think the answer is obvious. You put him on the wing with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner.
I wasn't gonna say that actually.
So you load up that top line: Patty Kane, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews. I don't care if Marner and Patrick Kane both play right wing. I don't care. These are three of the top 20 players in the world. They could make it work. You know, whether Kane has to play the right side and Marner has to switch to the left side or vice versa, or whatever, they're too talented for that not to work. So throw all that out the window. I don't care what position any of those guys play. You load up those three guys. And then the second line, whatever, you can kind of keep it the same. John Tavares, Willie Nylander. You can throw Nick Robertson there, Alex Kerfoot. You got some options. And maybe there's more balance if you bring down Patty Kane and have him play with Tavares, but that's my take on the situation. Just load up that top line.
You're throwing some shade at Michael Bunting. You didn't even say his name. Like, you don't.
Fair enough. Maybe I forgot about Michael Bunting. Just throw Bunting on the wing with Tavares and Nylander there, or throw Bunting on the third line if you want. He can play anywhere in that top nine, I think.
Yeah, not much of a downgrade there for Bunce when he's negotiating a contract. I'm sure he'll be ecstatic to go from Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner to Kerfoot and whoever else they put him with.
Oh, God.
Yeah, those 20 goals don't come easy, Bunce, when you're not playing with those two. But we'll see. Again, I'm hoping, Bruno, of course, like all Leafs fans, but let's do like the pie chart thing. What % chance would you give Patrick Kane ending up a Toronto Maple Leaf?
Oh man, it's less than 20%.
Okay.
Like I'll give it around a 1 in 5 chance. I'll say like 15% chance, honestly, that he ends up with the Leafs.
Yeah, I was gonna say like between 5 and 10%. Like I think it's a total and utter pipe dream. So being honest, everyone, honesty sucks.
The NHL desperately needs something like this. Like, look
right, they do.
Look at the NBA, man. That league stays relevant all year round. You had the whole Kevin Durant saga, forcing a trade out of Brooklyn, saying he doesn't want to be there with Steve Nash and Sean Marks, and the whole Kyrie situation and Ben Simmons. And then he backtracks, and then he meets with the owner, Joe Tsai, and they all kumbaya together and reconcile, and now he's back in Brooklyn. Like, that took up like 2 to 3 months, just that, not to mention some of the other things that have been happening in the NBA. The NFL, the same thing. There's juicy storylines all year round. In the NHL, what do we get in the offseason? We got the Huberdeau Kachuk trade, and that was pretty much it. There was nothing else, Lepore. Like, the NHL desperately needs a storyline like this.
Yeah. It's funny. Today's sports is different. It's about content. It's about clicks. It's about debate. So I think the kind of old school sports fans hate the whole super team thing. Absolutely despise the super team thing. LeBron, when he went to the Heat, everyone immediately, we fucking hate LeBron and we hate the Heat. But from a league standpoint and a money standpoint, what that creates, and this is how I heard it being used. When LeBron went to the Heat, what was created was a rock band on tour, selling out every show. So that team's traveling around, and in whatever city they go to, it is a big deal that team is in town. So you look at the perspective of the Toronto Maple Leafs and acquiring Patrick Kane, as you said, the attention it would draw. The Leafs are already the craziest draw in the NHL whenever they're on the road. You throw in Patrick Kane, and again, that increased hatred that would exist for the Toronto Maple Leafs if they pulled off this deal. And it's funny, every year in the playoffs, they show those numbers of ratings, most watched games and whatever. At the time, it may have been past, but I think Game 7 against the Bruins in 2013 was like the second, it was like a top 5 watched hockey game of all time on CBC or Hockey Night in Canada or something, or maybe it was Canada across the board. I have no idea, but people know where I'm going with this. It was the first round. And here you have the Leafs as an underdog in a Game 7, and everybody's watching. Why? Because you love the Leafs or you despise the Leafs and you want to watch them lose. And that's what gets created with this stuff. And as much people don't want to hear it, that's what prints money. And what prints money is what people are going to push for at the top anyway.
It's so great for the league. Like, the Leafs are already the biggest villain in the NHL, and everyone loves to hate them and laugh at them and make fun of them. If they added Patrick Kane, their villain status would go from here to just
they're Darth Vader.
The damn roof.
Yeah, full-blown Darth Vader. If they
like full-blown, everyone's going to hate the Leafs. Like, everyone already hates the Leafs, but now, like, people who don't even watch hockey and don't even know who the Leafs are going to hate the Leafs if they get Patrick Kane. And that would be fantastic for the NHL. Like, the amount of people that are going to show up when these guys are on the road just to watch Patrick Kane and Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Mitch Marner, William Nylander. If they can keep all those guys together, it would just be absolutely incredible for the NHL. The content, the storylines, the drama that would come out of this. Going to the Leafs would be honestly the ideal fit. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Leaf fan and I selfishly want Patrick Kane to come here. I think it is unquestionably the best landing spot from a revenue generating and content standpoint and popularity standpoint when you look at the NHL in comparison to all these other leagues and what it would do for the NHL. It would be incredible.
See, it's funny, and this is like on topic, but kind of off topic, but we usually do this. The year of the McDavid lottery. I've always said that I'd love to have gone inside the heads of the guys at the top at the NHL. Where did they want him to go?
It was the Leafs.
You think hands down? Because obviously, I mean, that would have been just so psychotic. Like if the Leafs would have won that lottery and got the Leafs. But like people were saying, oh, you know, save Buffalo or save Arizona, kind of like Sid save Pittsburgh. Maybe they would want. You're already shaking your head.
No,
like chance. no chance. They want the Leafs again.
They
that
wanted
whole
the
evil
Leafs,
thing.
or I even forgot some of the other teams a little bit further down in the draft lottery.
I think that was a year. I think that year Boston like just missed the playoffs. Like Boston could have got him. Like, can you?
Yeah, or one of the big U.S. markets. It was the Leafs or one of the big U.S. markets, whether it's Boston, New York,
Philly,
one of those teams, Chicago for that matter. I think that's where the NHL ideally wanted him to land. I mean, yeah, Edmonton is fine. Like, it's a fine landing spot, but what would have been best for the NHL, I can definitely say, wasn't Connor McDavid landing in Edmonton.
Yeah. Well, give it a few years. Free agency's coming for him. So book it, everyone.
When Patrick Kane is making $1.5 million and John Tavares is off the books, so then you're going to have Matthews, Connor McDavid, Patrick Kane, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander.
Yeah.
Giddy up, Leafs Nation.
Tavares extends for $1 million a year just to be around and hang out with the boys and lift cups.
Oh my goodness.
Set it in stone, everybody.
It's time for a quick break to let you know that today's episode comes from True Classic. Our brand new sponsor has the absolute best fitting t-shirts a man can buy. Just take a look. This thing looks amazing. Finding the right t-shirt, no matter what body type you have, can be incredibly frustrating. Most t-shirts are either way too tight on your gut or look way too big and boxy. It's time to upgrade with a t-shirt that's right for you. True Classic has already helped over 2 million men finally get a better fit at an affordable price. Our listeners get access to the best deal they have to offer. For a limited time only, get 25% off with the code GFP at trueclassic.com. Lepore, I love these t-shirts, man.
These t-shirts are incredible. Gentlemen, there are a few things in your life that you should take very seriously. Your finances, your car, your shoes, your significant other. But what should also be on that list is your t-shirts. Don't be a total schleb and wear a t-shirt that's too big with boxy arms and you look like a total joke. Have some self-respect. Go to the True Classic Tees website, put in GFP for 25% off.
The t-shirts are awesome. They also have the hat. You see Lepore is wearing it. Look at this
rocking this hat. Look at that hat. It's like plus 35 out. This hat is perfect with the mesh back.
Great quality hat. You can wear it forwards or backwards. I love it, man. I love it. True Classic. Shout out to you guys. Love these t-shirts. They fit so good. I love when they fit nice and snug around the arms, but they're not too tight around your midsection. Just so good. It's about time you learn how to dress properly, guys. Upgrade your wardrobe right now with True Classic at 25% off at trueclassic.com with the code GFP. Free shipping is included on purchases over $100. 100% risk-free guarantee with a 30-day return policy. Stay classy with True Classic. Success is when preparation meets opportunity, and Manscaped's Platinum Package will make sure you're prepared when opportunity strikes. Join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using the code GFP20. Lepore, the Platinum Package is simply the way to go.
Platinum Package, Anthony Bruno, is unstoppable. Let me tell you, everyone, I'm a proud Italian, but as an Italian, I have hair growing in places where I wish it didn't grow. And one of those places is the nose. And I've tried a lot of these trimmers and they all suck. They just make a loud noise and do nothing. I tried the Weed Whacker from Manscaped. A+, knocked it all out quickly, didn't pull on any hairs. Absolute great product. And that's only one of the pieces of this amazing package from Manscaped. So go to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code GFP20.
You got the Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker, as Lepore mentioned, the Boxers, the body wash, and the shampoo.
Going forever,
so many
man.
Great products. The deodorant. The list goes on and on. Listen, if you're a man and you want to be at your best, then you need these products from Manscaped. You heard it here from the GFP podcast. So once again, go to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using the code GFP20. That is 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the code GFP20. We talked about the Spittin Chiclets podcast.
Yeah, they got to have us on.
They really do. They really do. We're big fans of the Spittin Chiclets podcast. They know how to do it, man, when it comes to content and entertainment. First, you had Biz Nasty saying that Dubas is going to do whatever it takes for the Leafs to get Patty Kane. And then Paul Bissonnette's co-host, who a lot of you probably know really well, Ryan Whitney, former NHL defenseman, he then came out and said something that was maybe even crazier than what Biz Nasty said.
Oh.
He said that Patrick Kane is going to go back to the Buffalo Sabres, his hometown. He is going to be traded to Buffalo, and that the Buffalo Sabres are going to win the Stanley Cup before the Leafs. That came from Ryan Whitney. What are your thoughts on that, Lepore?
Okay, so as I've already established, I think it's incredibly unlikely that Kane ends up with the Leafs. I would even say I think it's less likely that he ends up with Buffalo, because if he's going to sign, if he's going to get traded somewhere, it's going to be somewhere that can win the cup next year. And that's it, because he's got 1 year left on his deal. If he does have Buffalo in his sights, why wouldn't he just go to a contender and sign there as a free agent? They don't have to give up anything for him. And he skips that year. And it gives him time too to see where the team's at in a year and evaluate like how they're progressing. But I mean, I don't see Buffalo happening either. Again, it'd be a great story and again, be very cool. I mean, I think the Sabres maybe have the nicest jerseys in the National Hockey League. So a Patrick Kane 88 would be pretty cool. You sound surprised. You seem surprised that I said
the Sabres have the best uniform in the NHL.
The old school, like the navy blue with the buffalo with the Sabres. Like I really, really, really like that. Not the slug, but they're bringing it back though, eh? The slug, you see that?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, and blue and yellow. So we'll see how that looks. But I just don't see it happening. And I often say that people hold on too much to a player going home. Like, oh, he's going to go to Buffalo because he's from there. Austin Matthews is going to go to Arizona. So-and-so is going to go to Toronto because it's like these guys are rich millionaires. If they really want to go home every once in a while, they can jump in their private jet. Their life is good wherever they are. The whole thing about going home, like I don't really understand it. I do get it in the case like some of these older Leafs, like Spezza, Giordano, those guys signing as free agents just to kind of wrap it up in their hometown. But like in your prime, no, you got to go with what's best for you and what's best for your family. So, I mean, like I really don't see the Buffalo thing happening.
Especially with these superstars. I think, fans recently have been conditioned to believe that all these stars want to come home because we saw LeBron go back to Cleveland. We saw John Tavares go home to the Leafs. That was the biggest example in hockey.
True.
So now we all think that these star players want to go home, but a lot of the times that's not the case. Like, look at Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah.
Right? He threw a curveball to everybody. Like, no one was expecting him to go to Columbus. That was crazy. That came completely out of left field. So this idea that Kane is going to Buffalo because he's from there and he's going to lead all these young guys to a Stanley Cup one day, I don't think it makes a lot of sense either. Like you said, Lepore, if he's going to go to Buffalo, like why not just sign there as a free agent?
Yeah.
And, when you look at Buffalo and you look at their salary cap space on Cap Friendly, they have nearly $20 million in cap space.
Must be
their
nice.
highest paid player is Jeff Skinner, which is a terrible contract. He has 5 years left at $9 million. But other than that, they really don't have much on the books long term.
Yeah.
After him, Alex Tuck is their biggest contract, $4.75 million for the next 4 years.
Isn't he from Buffalo? I might be wrong.
Alex Tuck he's American.
I think that was kind of the story when he got traded there from Vegas.
He
looked good.
He's from Syracuse, New York, so pretty close.
Okay.
He's a good player. I mean, that's
sure.
They got a lot of good players. Like they just drafted Owen Power.
Yeah.
Who looks like he's going to be an incredible defenseman. Rasmus Dahlin.
He looked good last year. Dahlin looked good last year.
Like they got some good players, man. They've been so bad the last few years. All the draft picks that they've had at the top of the draft. That's going to be a good team, but I don't see it either. I think Ryan Whitney is crazy, honestly.
Yeah.
When he says that Kane is going to get traded to Buffalo. Like, why would Kane want to go to Buffalo? Other than that being his hometown, like, why would you want to go play there at this point? That team's not ready to win anything.
The Bills are good. I mean, if the
Bills are really good. The Bills are the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, if that counts as something. I saw an interview with Stamkos once, and the whole thing of him signing in Toronto when he was approaching free agency, going home, that came up. And he was honest and he said, look, yeah, I was born in that area, but like all these star NHL players, they move away very early. Like he made the point. So he goes off to Sarnia to go play for his teenage years. And then he played whatever amount of years he played in Tampa Bay. Like it gets to a point where if you minus his like absolute childhood, he lived very few years in Toronto. Like he knows 0 adult years, even teen years. So there's even that perspective too. Like I don't want to say the Stamkoses of the world, they don't consider themselves like Torontonians or anything like that, but they're kind of not because they haven't really spent any of their real life there. So
that's a really good point, especially with these top players like Stamkos.
Oh, they're going to prep school.
Essentially, playing a few years in the GTHL, like playing AAA hockey. That's the biggest minor hockey league in Ontario. So you're playing there. And then by the time you're 15, 16, especially if you're one of these top guys, you're going off to some junior team. Like you said, Lepore, in Stamkos' case, it was the Sarnia Sting. So then you're there for a few years. Then he's in Tampa for the first, whatever it was, 8 years of his career before he became a free agent. He doesn't even remember how it was.
Yeah. And
does he even know Toronto?
Does he even know his way around
a little kid.
Toronto? Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I remember that whole saga. The Leafs brought in Canadian Tire executives and they threw the kitchen sink at Steven Stamkos trying to get him to sign. And he made a great decision staying with the Tampa Bay Lightning. A fantastic decision staying there. So, yeah, I think we can both agree that Ryan Whitney is a little bit crazy. And honestly, for that matter, Paul Bissonnette, just as crazy as Ryan Whitney.
crazy sells though, bro.
Yeah, as much as we like those guys and as much as we appreciate the entertainment that they provide, it kind of looks like Patrick Kane is not going to go to the Leafs or Buffalo. But Lepore, if you had to pick one team,
you're already smiling
because I'm excited, man. You gave me a little teaser. So before we started the podcast, I was talking to Lepore, and he says he has a really good feeling that Patrick Kane is going to one team, and he didn't want to reveal it until we recorded the podcast. So Lepore, who is this team, this mystery team that Patrick Kane is going to be traded to, in your opinion?
Okay. So if someone approached me with a briefcase that had $1 million and said, you get this briefcase if you get the question right as to whether or as to where Patrick Kane will end up, my answer would be, and we talked about evil empires, we talked about rock band tours, Patrick Kane will end up on the New York Rangers. And here's why. Number one, it's in the East. So we'd go from the West to the East. It's not too far of a move for him. So I'm sure his life's fully established in Chicago. So New York's not overly far. And I think something that's not getting a lot of attention is Artemi Panarin and the connection they had while playing together in Chicago. And I think even Kane said once that he's never had chemistry with a player like he did with Artemi Panarin. And Panarin's been a bananas player, and Kane's a bananas player. But I just see it kind of like how when we're talking about the Leafs and the Sabres, so many reasons as to why it doesn't make sense or excuses we can make as to why it's not going to happen. What could we say about the Rangers really that no other team would be dealing with? And by that, I mean like the cap and fitting it in and figuring it out, getting a trade ready. So I just think the team that's got the fewest obstacles is the New York Rangers. And I think that's where Patrick Kane's going to end up, rocking Eric Lindros's number 88.
I love it, Lepore. You know, we talked about how great it would be for the NHL if Patrick Kane landed in Toronto. If he goes to the New York Rangers, I don't know if it would be as effective, but man, that is like probably second on the list in terms of the ideal landing spot for popularity and content and all that stuff. That would be incredible for the NHL if he landed with the New York Rangers. And I love the point you brought up about Kane and Panarin. You know, people forget because now Artemi Panarin has played on Columbus, you know, played on the Rangers. People forget, like when he was on the Blackhawks and he started his career as a rookie who was like 24, 25, older than a typical rookie. Like he came in and him and Patty Kane had just ridiculous chemistry right off the bat. Like Panarin was a point per game player his first year in the NHL playing with Patrick Kane. He was so good. So I love that point because those guys have amazing chemistry. And if they can reconnect, you know, years down the line after he started his career in Chicago, that would be amazing. The only obstacle I see, and it's the same thing with all these other top teams, is the cap space issue with the Rangers. Like they would have some juggling to do because I'm looking at their cap sheet. Adam Fox, you know, who's a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman, won the Norris Trophy, not this past season, but the season before that. They have him on the books for $9.5 million with a ton of years left on that deal. He fully deserved. Then you have Jacob Trouba, 4 years left on his deal at $8 million. They just gave him the C. Yeah. So you have nearly $18 million locked up in those two guys. Panarin, 4 years left on his deal at 11.6.
He's at 11.6. Yeah, I forgot his contract was that high. Wow.
Yeah, it's huge. One of the highest paid guys in the league. Zibanejad, $8.5 million for another, God, it's like another 7 years, I believe.
Yeah, he just signed that one.
Yeah. Chris Kreider on the books for 5 more years at 6.5. They just signed Vinny Trocheck in free agency for over $5.5 million.
Okay.
So they'd have some moves to make here. And again, we talked about the whole salary retention thing, how the Blackhawks would, you know, retain 50%. But I don't know. It's kind of hard. Listen, if I had to pick a team, you had the briefcase in front of me as well. I had the New York Rangers really high on my list. I don't want to be that boring person that picks the same team. I think it would make a lot of sense for all the other reasons we talked about. It's just the one thing stopping this, I think, is the salary cap situation. If I had to pick another team, Lepore, and I know a lot of people are saying, oh, he's going to go to the Oilers. The Oilers have even more problems, honestly, with their salary cap.
He's not going to the Oilers.
He's not going to the Oilers. If I had to pick another American team that is ready to win,
I'll ask you this, Bruno. Minus the Leafs, where would you want him to go?
I would want him to go to the Rangers, honestly.
Okay.
I think that would be fantastic for hockey.
What about like the Ducks?
I don't like that. I just feel like that team is nowhere near ready to compete.
Too far away still.
They're too far away. You know, you go down the list with some of those California teams. Now
LA.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. LA.
That would be a pretty nice landing spot as well, because they're
getting better.
A little bit more salary cap juggle room here. Like,
Brown just retired, right?
What's that? Sorry?
Brown just retired.
Yeah, Brown is gone. Kopitar has 2 years left on his deal at $10 million. Remember, they made that trade for Kevin Fiala, and now they have him on the books for nearly $8 million a year on a long-term deal. But other than that, they don't have a lot of big contracts at all. Then Drew Doughty, obviously. Drew Doughty's their big contract.
Yeah.
That would be great. I like that. I like the LA move, man.
Yeah, I think that's one I would want. I think LA is the one I would want, if you ask me. But everyone, comment down below with this one, because being up here in Canada, we don't really know. So as we acknowledge, like, everyone loves or hates the Leafs. People cheer them or they despise them. It's not they say the Rangers are the most valuable team in the National Hockey League, and that has to do with connections to MSG, the MSG network, all that stuff. I think in terms of social media followers, like, they are at the top, like literally at the top or among the top. Are the Rangers hated though, like the Leafs? Like, I don't
think so.
Yeah, like obviously the whole Islanders Rangers thing, but I don't think the Rangers receive hate like, say, the Leafs do. So even among those like Metro teams and stuff like that. That's an interesting question. If you had to, like, and everyone comment down below, among American teams, like for Canadian teams, like literally you could poll 100,000 people, and 100,000 people across the board would say the Leafs. And that includes Leafs fans as the team that's most hated. Poll American hockey fans. What's the most hated hockey team in the US? I don't know what answer would be said. I really don't.
That's a great question. I have no idea. Like, there's like 5 teams you could choose from. Is it Boston?
Probably Boston.
Is it the Rangers?
Yeah.
Is it, I know Colorado just won the Stanley Cup. I don't really think they're hated. Like, is it Philly because people don't like their fan base and they're too aggressive?
Philly hasn't won enough to be hated. Like, and then the Leafs haven't won, but I think people know what I mean by saying Philadelphia. They're not hated. They haven't won enough to be hated.
Is it Pittsburgh because of all the success they've had with Crosby and Malkin? But I feel like those guys are adored.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh's too small of a town. If you've ever been to Pittsburgh, it's kind of hard to hate Pittsburgh, right? I mean, you might hate the fact that they beat you all the time, but it's just that.
So it's got to be either the Rangers or Boston, right?
Yeah.
If you were to pull, like you said, 100,000 fans, it has to be one of those two teams. I can't think of another team, honestly.
If you ask people like late 90s, early 2000s, you think they would have said the Red Wings?
Probably. That was the other team I was going to say, but they've obviously been in rebuild mode the last few years. So
yeah, they haven't been relevant enough. Yeah.
But they're probably high on that list as well. But yeah, in this very moment, I got to think it would be probably the Rangers or the Bruins.
Yeah.
And maybe the Flyers, like I said, just because they're just known as this like very obnoxious fan base.
Yeah.
But,
I went to a game in Philadelphia, man. It was a lot of fun.
I've never been to a game in Philly, but that was pretty cool.
Most Philadelphia Flyers thing ever. Playoff game versus the Devils. And Daniel Carcillo scored the overtime winner. Remember him? Yeah, so just like Philadelphia adored like that type of player and scores the winner and goes absolutely crazy. The building exploded. Yeah, it was good. Good time in Philadelphia.
Awesome. But yeah, circling back to this whole Patrick Kane thing, it's been taking up all the news right now because there really isn't that much going on in the NHL, honestly. Yeah. And we're waiting here. Where's he going to land? We've gone through all of these teams. You know, like we've been saying throughout the podcast, let us know. Comment down below where you think Patrick Kane is going to land, because it makes a ton of sense for the Blackhawks to unload him at this point. And like I mentioned off the top of the show, same thing with Jonathan Toews, because why the hell would these guys need to be there throughout a rebuild? And you can actually get assets for these guys, especially Patrick Kane, who's still one of the top offensive players in the league. Lepore, is there anything else you want to get off your chest about this whole Patrick Kane saga?
The Tays one's interesting because like with Patrick Kane, it's so obvious what the deal will look like. Like there's going to be some retention. There's got to be. And there's going to be a lot going the other way because of the value that would add to your team. I'd like to see what GMs are willing to dish out for Tays, because really, like, what can he provide at this point in his career? Because he's not like as much of a scorer as Kane is. He's had a great career, the 3 Cups, Conn Smythe, Hall of Famer, slam dunk, the gold medals. But that's an iffy one. Like if I'll put it this way, if the Leafs made a trade for Patrick Kane, I don't even know what I would get upset at for what was going the other way. Like what could we possibly trade that I'd be like, fuck, we should not have done that, barring like 5 straight first round picks or something. With Tays, that could come up. Like if they dished out too much for 1 year of Tays, that'd be disappointing. So I'd be interested to know with the Tays one. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, with Jonathan Toews, I just think he's sort of fallen off a cliff. And I know he's gone through like health issues, and he's just simply not the same player he used to be. With Patrick Kane, he's essentially still one of the most productive players in the league. But just looking at what Toews did last year, in 71 games, 12 goals and 37 points.
Ooh, gross.
Like that is ugly, man. And he has the exact same contract as Kane. 1 more year at $10.5 million. Wow. I cannot imagine that there is a team out there that is putting together a massive package to try and land Jonathan Toews. Now, we all know that Toews, if he does get traded, it's not even going to be close to the package that a team would be giving up for Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
But I'd be very scared, man. Despite the pedigree and everything that guy has accomplished, and he'd be a great like depth centerman, you can't be unloading the clip to acquire a guy like that at this point of his career, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, with that one, like that's gross, man. 12 goals. Like we talk about Kane and what the deal will be. It almost certainly would have to be a double retain with Tays that you get him. It's like there's a third team and it's cut in half, because even at half that, 5.25 million for 12 goals. No. Yeah, exactly. That face describes it perfectly. So yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun for Chicago and see how these deals go. And trades are fun. Trades get people talking. Trades get people arguing. So, and when they benefit the Toronto Maple Leafs, they get people arguing even more. So let's hope it happens that way.
Lepore, last thing before we wrap this up.
Sure.
Do you think Toews and Kane will both be Blackhawks by the start of the season?
I was going to ask you, will they both be Blackhawks to start? Will they both be Blackhawks to finish? Tays for sure. I can't see it. I can't see a deal coming for Tays before the start of the season. Kane, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's rumor he's going to get dealt. But if I had to bet, though, I'd probably say he's still going to be with Chicago.
Yeah, I think that's the safe bet. I do have this weird feeling, though, that something is going to happen. I feel like something's going to happen before the start of the season, probably before training camp begins pretty soon. I have a feeling something's coming down the pipeline. But yeah, with Toews, I think he's going to be a Blackhawk day one of the season. Kane, I'll go with, I think he's going to get dealt before the start of training camp.
Yes. Dude, what I'm kind of thinking is why, if you're Chicago, I mean, the right offer comes, but you don't have to rush it. You can sit around, you can make teams sweat. A contending team gets off to a slow start, offers way too much. So we'll see. But I hear you that it could or will get done, but I wouldn't be surprised either way if this drags and drags and drags.
We just need some more drama, please. Give us the content, give us the drama, give us the entertainment. The NHL is too boring in the offseason. We need something.
Yeah, we couldn't even get behind the World Juniors, man. Jeez.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I pretty much missed the entire tournament. We won't even get into that because that'll take an entire podcast, Lepore.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about the World Juniors on the GFP podcast.
Oh, man. All right, everybody. that is going to do it for episode 72 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. If you were listening to this podcast and you really enjoyed the episode, if I could say that, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it more than you could ever imagine if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.